team coverage is moving to CBS News Miami's Jim DeFede to break down how President Biden came to this decision. Jim, the decision not easy for the president. What does the future of the party now look like?
Yeah, I mean, the way I sort of have described it is that since the debate 3 weeks ago, President Biden has been going through the stages of grief as his campaign slowly died. I mean, first there was denial, then there was bargaining, then there was anger, and finally there was acceptance. And I think for the party, the Democrats had to let Joe Biden go through that process to get to this result, but this result seemed almost inevitable. And what you've seen in the short time, less than 24 hours since the president made the decision, is a party that's been reinvigorated. We watched the Republican National Convention last week, in which the Republicans appeared unified, if not a little too cocky at times. And as a result, now Democrats watched that convention and felt distraught. And now you have a party that seems to be reinvigorated. Just within a matter of 8 or 9 hours of this announcement being made and Harris emerging as the likely nominee now, one Democratic group raised $50 million in small dollar donations. So what it really was that the Democrats, which were really in trouble before this, are now energized. It doesn't mean that they're going to win. Donald Trump is still a formidable candidate, but at least they now have a candidate in Kamala Harris who can prosecute the case against him. And that's a word I chose carefully, prosecute, because it's going to be the story of the prosecutor versus the man who they see as a convicted felon.
I think your stages of grief is really pretty spot on there. And when you saw the announcement, you could almost feel some of the Democrats just let out a sigh of relief. But let's move on now to Vice President Kamala Harris, who Biden has endorsed. Her head-to-head polls, though, Jim, against Trump, they're not much better than Biden. So what does she have to do to win over voters of her own party?
Yeah, first, let's be clear. Those polls probably don't mean a whole lot right now, because she has to reintroduce herself over the next, I think the next 2 weeks are critical for her to sort of not just solidify the party itself, which she is doing remarkably well. I'm amazed at the speed in which Democrats, which are usually a party of chaos and disarray, are galvanizing around her. I don't see a serious challenger, even if Joe Manchin were to come back to be a Democrat and try to challenge her. I think it's pretty clear Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee. She needs to go out and just sort of reintroduce herself to the country. Being the vice president often means you stay in the shadows. She is now front and center. And that's what she's got to sort of do, is to go out there, energize the party, and now try to appeal to those moderates. And one of the things that is going to be critical is this race changes automatically. This race went from being a referendum on Joe Biden's health and his stamina to now being back to where it was for Democrats before, a referendum on Donald Trump. And the key issues are now going to be reproductive rights, the Supreme Court. Those are the issues where Democrats feel most comfortable, and where Kamala Harris has excelled since the Dobbs decision came down and Roe versus Wade was overturned. She's been the administration's key, person going out there on that issue, and I think that's going to be where this race gets refocused, is on women's issues, women's rights, reproductive rights. That's
going to be a strong issue for her, but also she's going to take some criticism when it comes to the border and how she's handled that under this regime. So, of course, we'll continue to follow this. Jim, as always, we appreciate your insight.